Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for Bauer Rides the News, where I take a look at something going on in the tabletop games world that piques my interest and really take a deep dive into it and read it aloud and talk about it as I learn about it with you. And today I am on the StoneMaierGames.com website, ran by Jamey Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games, who, for my money, is one of the nicest people in the entire hobby. I've had the opportunity to interview him quite a few times. I love the cut of his jig. I think he's ran his company spectacularly. And I think when we look back, at the period of time where Kickstarter really just started to dominate the board game hobby and become just, on equal ground with just the standard hobby and how things were before, I think we're going to look at a couple companies and really say, wow, these are some of the companies that really stood out, like Simon, Stonemaier Games, Pandasaurus Games. These ones all started on Kickstarter, and they've all had very different paths, and no one, I would say, potentially better than Stonemaier. But right now I'm looking at their blog, which, by the way, is one of the most fantastic, I think it is the most fantastic board game blog on the planet. I'll just give that shout out. I don't think there's anyone that does it better, personally. If you want to run a Kickstarter, you should absolutely sift through a lot of it. But today I'm excited about checking out the truth about tabletop game reviewers, because, hey, that's me. I'm a tabletop game reviewer. This is from last month, September 12th, 2024. It's got 12,000 views, 66 comments. It came to my attention today, and now I'm super excited to check it out. So we're going to read this, and I'm going to respond as we go through it. I'm trying to approach this topic without bias or preconceptions, and I'd invite you to do the same. I love when we lead off with that. Instead, let's focus on the data. Love it. I sent a survey to the 800-plus reviewers on our list to ask them about their practices and procedures. I did not participate in this because I'm terrible at checking my inbox, especially when I was working at Hero Time full-time. But now that I'm back into it, I will also give you my answers as we go through, too. As is writing, nearly 300 of them anonymously chose to answer the survey. Below, I will briefly summarize the results and display the responses so you can draw your own conclusions. Two important notes. These questions are about reviews. A review features a content creator's opinion of a product, in contrast to non-review content like how to play video, an unboxing, or a playthrough. I try to put some thoughts on unboxing videos, too. There are two pieces to this puzzle, but yeah, most of them just straightforward. There are two pieces of this puzzle, reviews and publishers. I've shared a survey with tabletop game publishers to gather their methods and practices. It's completely anonymous, and I will post the results next week. Here's the link, and if this isn't also stupid long, then we'll check out both of them, because I'm really excited to read this blog. So, let's go. Reviewer practices and procedure summary. The vast majority of reviewers, 96%, received at least some games for free from publishers. Okay, so 4% of them are liars or new. Most reviewers, or rich. Most reviewers, 90%, openly disclose in their content they've received the product for free. I put something at the end of my video that just says assume every single thing that I ever post is paid content. Because, yeah. So I'm in that, yeah. Do I normally say it? Sometimes. I just think it's assumed. But I try and mention it all the time. Even if at least at the very end. I always say, just assume. It's exceptionally rare that publishers offer money to reviewers in exchange for a review. Only 4% said this happens many times. So many times being the key there. Yeah, I have been offered money for reviews. A lot of times this is when it's like, hey, we really need some stuff out before X time. Or, hey, this would otherwise be a preview, but we are fully cool with this just being a full review. We're like, there have been some edge case situations, but for the most part, I would agree with this number. It's exceptionally rare that publishers offer money reviews in exchange for, doesn't happen very often because, once again, it is a sea of reviewers. It is exceptionally rare that a reviewer requests money in exchange for their review. Only 2% said they did this many times. I would love to know those 2%. That's funsies for me. Because here's the thing. There's going to be ones that are huge, and you'll be like, yeah, I get it. And then there's going to be ones that aren't, and you'll be like, what? Where did you come from? No, I don't believe I've ever done that. Most reviewers who accept money for non-review content will avoid expressing their opinion. Most reviewers accept money for non-review content will avoid expressing their opinion. 17% differ, most with a disclaimer. This is where I would differ as well, and I'm getting more and more and more into this. If you go look at my recent video that I did for Virahode, when they sent me a prototype, I just trashed on their rule booklet because it's bad, and they're going to fix it. They're going to fix it, I would hope. And I'm going to give them tons of feedback. But yeah, that's the thing, and that's what really I think is the thing that just kills so many people's opinions on content creators is this area right here. So I'm really glad that Jamey brought this one up because this is the thing. Most reviewers who accept money for non-review content will avoid expressing their opinion. And I've done this as well too. Especially, so they're saying previews pretty much, unboxing, gameplay videos. Because yeah, sometimes I've been like, okay, you've already paid me and I said I was going to do, and that's actually how I worded my Fiverr, which I'll have a link down below if you want to get any work done for, rule booklet stuff, videos, check out that Fiverr link below, great reviews, whatever. But yeah, a lot of times I leave that door open because if I hate your game, I'll be like, okay, I'll just do a gameplay video or I'll just do a preview. You know, it's like, okay, just this crap I just throw at the wall. And then the previews, the way I try and phrase them, at least I used to. Now I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to be blunt honest. So no one's going to pay me, which is fine. But the people that do pay me, yeah, it's going to be weird. So I'm going to be in that 17%. But yeah, most of the time what to do is like I was trying to think, and as a reviewer, what you do is you're like trying to think of who might like this game. Because there's the thing. You might be like, this game is garbage. But at the end of the day, you can't just say that because everybody likes all different kinds of games, you know? There's legitimate people who have played hobby games. So like Monopoly's still my favorite game of all time. Uno is still my favorite game of all time. It's just everybody likes different things. So at the end of the day, yeah, 1 out of 5, that doesn't surprise me. But this is really where I think most people get this bad impression because, you know, doing a preview for a really bad game sucks. Like I've been there before where it's like, God, I really don't want to do anything for you because this game is just garbo. And it's like, what do you do? What do? You give the money back. That's what you should do. That's what you're saying. I don't. I shouldn't say that. There's an over bias, e.g. the reviewer is friends with the publisher designer, or if the reviewer has received money from the publisher in the past for other content, the results are mixed. Yeah. Some reviewers will abstain, others will disclose the bias, and others don't let their bias impact the products they choose to review. I'd love to know the percentages here. This one right here, I think, is the big one. Some reviewers will abstain, or what I will tend to do is if I'm friends with someone, I will try and do the courtesy of being like, you know what? I'm just going to hold back this review so I'm not the first one. Because normally it's the opposite with a lot of reviewers. With most reviewers, it's like, we want to get these reviews out early. But when it's like, oh, dude, like I'm friends with the designer of this game and somebody massively screwed up the rule booklet. And it's not like, it's not their fault necessarily because they don't necessarily do the rule booklet. And it's like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna. I actually have one exactly like that. I sat on the review for like 6 months. I was like, you know what, dude, I'm just not. We trashed on your game, so I'm just going to sit on this one. And I don't think I've even posted. It'll get posted like, I'll fart that one out in like a month and a half or something like that, just on some random Tuesday at like 3 a.m. But yeah, I think that's the big thing where it's like. Or they just won't make any content on it at all. With the abstaining, yeah. Most reviewers, 78%, will accept the tabletop products for review, even if they include genres, themes, and mechanisms they don't typically enjoy. Most reviewers will accept tabletop products for review. Oh, my God, yeah. I'm surprised that's even lower. Especially when you're first in the hobby. It's just so addictive to take free copies of stuff. If you saw some of my hauls from, like, Gen Con and, like, other people's hauls, too. Like, you see it all the time. You're the board game reviewer thing. And like when you're first there, it's just it's like a drug. It's like, oh yeah, I'll take that. And it's not like you ever think you're not going to cover. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to cover all these, but it's just you don't get to it. And I think honestly, that's my hypothesis why there's so much turnover in this hobby, because people just can't stare at that look on the face where they lie. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, there's this huge, they got a terrible thing happening. All those review copies are gone. And you know how many times I've seen reviewers say that in the like 11, 12 years I've been doing this? It's a lot. 2 hands worth? A lot of coincidences there. Most reviewers will accept tabletop products for review, even if they include genres, themes, and mechanisms. Yeah, that's like everybody. Yeah, that's not surprising to me. If a reviewer plays a game they intend to review, but it does... Because here's the thing. As a reviewer, and maybe it's just me, because I've had an argument with Lance, the Undead Viking, one of the OGs of game reviewing. I think he's like number 3 or 4 after Scott Nicholson, Draken Strike, Tom Vassell. I think he's like 4. So arguably Mount Everest material, at least if we're going USA or English. And I do apologize if I'm forgetting anybody. But I always love covering games that I wasn't interested in, because that always meant to me so much more when that game was great. I was like, this theme is garbage, right? Like, I hate this art. Like, oh my God, I couldn't care the less, but damn, these mechanisms are so good. Like, that's why I always go out of my way to play abstract strategy games, despite the fact they are unquestionably my least favorite genre. Like, I will never, ever, ever pick a abstract strategy game, ever, pretty much, unless it's a review copy. But when someone says they want to play one, I'm like, oh yeah. because I always just want to be reminded of why I hate them or why I potentially like them. So I wouldn't look into that number too much, because, and plus, especially if it's just like the new hotness, what am I going to say no? Because at the end of the day, this is just another penny in the well. If a reviewer plays a game they intend to review but doesn't like it, responses are varied. Many will proceed with the review, 62%, or contact the publisher with questions, 20%, while some choose not to create a review. I'm going to guess that 62% is lying. Not all of them, but that number seems insanely high. Yeah. And I know it's anonymous, but still, I have a hard time believing that that number is that high, that proceed with the review if they don't like it. And here's my line of thinking. I don't feel like most reviews are very negative, right? Yeah, no, you know what? Maybe it's not high. I think people just gloss over it, right? I feel like there's so many reviews that are just like, meh, this game's good, but this, eh. So you know what? Maybe, you know what? 62% seems reasonable. I still think it's a little bit lower than that. But yeah, maybe the lying was a little bit, the more I think about it, yeah. Or you'll do it as like a multi one. Like a lot of times that's podcasts. Ooh, yeah. 62 is much more reasonable to me. I don't typically do multi-game reviews in a single video or a single podcast, but I know a lot of people do, especially when they're like, meh, on the game. I know that's like the go-to play for a lot of people. It's a really smart play. Be like, oh yeah, you were featured on my variety video, and then boom, it's done. So if you're worried you're about to be burnt out and you're a content creator, don't pretend like you had a flood. Just cover it all in a crowd. Just cover it all in one episode, one podcast episode no one will ever see ever. Only a small number of viewers, 4%, are very worried that expressing negative opinions will lead to a fewer publishers sending them products for review. However, another 40% are at least a little worried about this. Only 4% are very worried that expressing negative opinions will lead to fewer publishers sending them products for review. I think that's a realistic number. I think I am very different in, I've gotten a lot of heat in how I review negative games. Like, I am very overly blunt and angry and stupid, like a belligerent drunk at a bar sometime in reviews when I get going on a negative game. A negative review. But most people are very diplomatic about it. They're surgically precise as to not piss off publishers. So the 4% I can believe, because most of them will be like, yeah, it wasn't this one, but the next one I'll get it. Whereas my communication skills with publishers is the worst ever. I'll be very frank with you. I just shot, for instance, Blue Orange Games. I've been on the review list forever. You know the last time I actually told them that I posted some content on their game? It's been years. So most of the time I just get off these lists because they're like, you didn't post anything. Oh, I did. I didn't message you because I'm bad at that. But so I think 4% is realistic. However, another 4% are at least a little worried about this. And yeah, they should be. They 100% should be. I've had this happen before. 100%. I've had this happen before in Kickstarter critique segments where publishers be like, yeah, you're not ever getting anything from me. Ad Magic comes to my mind. I remember Sherry Spiro once was very not happy with a Kickstarter critique I did on some weird 3-player light-up thing once. And she's like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, it's a very realistic concern, because here's the thing. And that's not me attacking that 44% for any way. Like, they should be concerned, because you think of these publishers, there's not a lot of money most publishers make. And if you are like crap on their game in a review, or even if you don't love it, they're like, all right, well, there's 4 other people who we could send that to who have roughly the same subscriber count most of the time. Yeah. So, and I imagine if these could be broken down into exactly where you were Kickstarter hierarchy, like less than 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000. And you can even break those up into smaller numbers, because honestly, trying to grow your YouTube channel is just so hard in our sector, because there's so many. There's so many people doing the exact same thing, and it's hard to stand out. Results data. Of the games you review, roughly how many are you provided for free by the publisher? None. All 13.8. That's where I actually am right here, because I do still buy I buy children's games for my kids. But I do try and get them for free. I'm like, hey, I'm a reviewer. Do you have any reviewer discounts? And then it's like, I'm hoping they'll say, yeah, just take it. But most of the time, they always have reviewer discounts too, which is nice. Just, yeah, pay at cost. Why do you post content about a tabletop product received for free from the publisher? Do you openly disclose that information? Yes, most of them, yep. How many times has a publisher offered you money in exchange for a review of their product? Never. Yeah, it's And that can't be a smoking gun to some people. There's just so many content creators. It would be stupid unless you're like really big to pay someone to do one most of the time, right? How many times have you asked a publisher for money in exchange for the reviews of their products? 93.7. So 6% are out there panhandling. If you and I'm gonna call it like that. Like if you were actively reaching out to a publisher, like God bless you, you got the hustle. It's just ugh. It's like for me, it's like I don't know. it's just not how I operate, right? But maybe that's why I have not grown larger, because I don't do stuff like that. Have you ever accepted money for non-review content for a product? Preview, playthrough, how to play through. Do you also express your opinion of that product? Yes, I express my opinion as a separate review with a disclaimer. No, I don't do that. Yes, I express my opinion in brief at the end of the paid content. Sometimes I mix it in. No, I do not express my opinion about products for which I received. NA, I do not accept money for any content. Okay. And this is why I would really, really, really love to see the numbers of these content creators. Like if this poll, there was like 4 here, and I imagine they don't have enough data to do that. That would be so fascinating, because that's essentially telling me 66.9% of the people are not big enough that people have reached out to them and try to pay them. Like that's what that kind of means to me. And maybe 66 is a high number. We'll go say 62. We'll go 62%. Because we also have to factor in those rich people in there, too, that just buy everything. And they're like, oh, look at me. Nobody's influencing this thing, that, the other thing. When you post content about a tabletop product, you preface the content with a mention of an overt biases. I don't. Yes, I try to. If you watch this channel, you know I try and do that all the time, especially at Kickstarter critiques. I'll tell you my biases with the publishers. I'll tell you my biases with the designers, with the illustrators, with their PR people. Like I love, honestly, it's a little bit of my way of name dropping too. You know, I like to remind people just how much I'm a little bit of a cockroach in this damn game. How often do you accept for review tabletop products and genres, themes, and do you that you don't typically enjoy? 2/3 of the time, often. Oh, sometimes. Yeah, so that's still 70. Yeah, and those 25%, good for you. You're smart. If you accept it, and that's where I am now. Honestly, at 25% is where I am at this very day. The last time I got burnt by that was Virahode. Jesus, that rule booklet. If you accept a tabletop product for review, and I did do an unpaid Virahode unboxing where I was actually excited about it. If you accept it, and it's a fun game. I don't want to trash on Virahode. The gameplay is great, but it needs a rule booklet. Completely redoing it. Just didn't feel like it was blind play tested at all, which is not good when it gets to the content creators. If you accept a tabletop product for review and you don't like it after playing, what do you usually do? Independently of the designer publisher. I think something got cut off there. I first contact the designer publisher. If you accept a table for review and don't like it after playing it, what do you do? I normally just don't do anything with it. Or I'll post a video on it. That's kind of why I started doing the Thoughts for the Corner, where it's like my game night. That was my way of saying, oh my God, I don't ever want to play this game again. How about we have 3 different people telling you what they thought about the game? So you can at least see, yeah, 3 people hate this game for different reasons. Or they like it. What conclusions did you draw from the data? Did any of these reviews surprise you? Let's check out some of the comments. Can I look at the top one? 5th question, counting from the top, 66.9% of the 335 YouTubers answers they do not accept money for any non-review content. Maybe your company is well known, but for the majority of small to medium publishers, you get an invoice ranging for $315 or more slapped to the reply email 99% of the cases. Yeah. And once again, that was one of those numbers where I was like, you're saying that 99% of the emails you receive from viewers after you ask them to review your game, not a preview, playthrough, or video, they ask for money? If that's what you're saying, please fare that for forwarding 50 of those. No, that's not what he's saying. I can't imagine that. I imagine he's talking about for paid previews and stuff. What was the average reach of the reviewers who Yep, there was. Adjusted for reviewers with a large audience. That would have been really nice to know. Reach was not a question in the survey, as ethics matter. No matter the size of the reviewer, you can see the vast majority and average if you do the math of reviewers on my list here. Jamey with the Jamey Stegmaier answer, which is a good one. It's a good one. It's just like, yep, go away. Reach was not a question of the survey's ethics, man, but whatever. We all know it would be a much more interesting and useful piece of information if he did. So yeah, but I will say he addressed that in a good way. It would look worse if he didn't address it at all. And by saying, I love that last line, though. That is such a that's just such a thing. Yeah, why don't you just go here, add all these numbers up, and then divide them? It's pretty much what he was saying. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Jamey. That was such a useful tool. Let's do this. How about we just postpone this video and I'll just count all these up. That's what he told you to do. I kind of love it. Jamey gets a 2/3 of a point grade bump up for that saucy little answer. Because it's only a saucy little answer when you really think about logistically what he's asking you to do. Ah, I love Jamey Stegmaier. All right. Even though I did break an embargo. I'm sorry, Jamey. I'm sorry. It was for something stupid, too. It wasn't even for something fun. It was for, like, these oversized site boys I didn't even care about. Publishers' approach to tabletop reviews. So I'm excited to see what the follow-up is. Last week, I posted the results of a survey. I sent the Tabletop Game Reviews a post I've updated with an additional 60 responses. I found the data illuminating. Great word. Both in terms... Oh, by the way, his crowdfunding book, which is, I think, one of the only books I've ever reviewed, is a rock-solid one. Only book I ever reviewed, I think. I found the data illuminating, both in terms of the nuances of... I want to review another book that's really fascinating. Put it up at Goodwill. It's about this guy in, like, the 1960s who got, like, all this skincare treatment so he could legitimately look African-American. And he went to all these deep, deep, deep southern places and saw what life was as an African-American. He was, like, this great writer. Oh, my God, it's fascinating. But back to this. I found the data illuminating, both in terms of the nuances of disclosure and the confirmation that it is incredibly rare for money to be offered in exchange for a review. Yeah, I could have told you that, and everybody could have told you that, but people just don't believe it. And it's like, once you actually start to look at the hobby and look at how many people are doing what I'm doing and how little money most of these companies are making, it's like, yeah. I also publicly shared a link for publishers to fill out a similar survey, and I reached out to publishers whose emails I have handy to see if they would also share their thoughts. Today, I'll share the results of that survey. Oh, this is what I'm excited about, because these aren't going to be skewed by a bunch of people with, say, 1 to 400 subscribers, and that's not a knock. Everybody's there at some point, right? Unless you're like already bringing like a huge pre-existing fan base. But it's just, it makes that information just so much less useful, despite what Jamey says. It's very rare, only 14% for a publisher to frequently offer to pay reviewers to share their opinions. Reviewers reported that this number is even lower, 4%. Yeah. You'd only be doing this for, like, Shut Up, Sit Down, Man vs. Meeple, the one guy who's really funny from Europe. I think there's, like, 2 of them. I don't remember his name. It's not Ilya Dragunov. He's a great wrestler, though. But, yeah, 14%. It's very rare. Frequently offered. So 14% of publishers are saying they frequently offer... And, yeah, I can see that. That sounds bad, but pretty much this is what it's saying. It's saying, we don't care what you say. We just want... This is pretty much just a billboard. And yeah, you can trash this game, but we believe it's so good. We believe you're going to enjoy it. Or a lot of the time, hey, you remember that prototype you tried a couple of years ago at Dice Tower West or Gen Con or wherever it is? Now it's a game. We'd like you to get a review up before Gen Con when it's launching. You have 90 days. Would it be possible? We're going to send you $250 to copy the game, plus we'll give you 2 giveaway copies. I imagine that's probably the gist of this. Like, because some people are probably getting like these terrible ideas, like, oh, part of the reviews. Oh, most likely that's probably what it's boiled down to. Because you got to realize, if it got out that publishers were trying to coerce content creators to publish positive reviews of their games, one email would burn your company to the freaking ground. Go see what happened to Quackalope's subscriber count, and he's a content creator. Imagine if it came out that one of these medium publishers was doing this. Like, people would... Oh my gosh, I would love it. It'd be fantastic. It would be so fascinating to see that. But yeah, I don't think most people are doing that. And if they are, I imagine they're going to get snuffed out pretty quickly. Because good games will rise to the top, period. Most of the time. It's also uncommon, 34% for a publisher to be asked for money by the reviewer. This is not my experience. It only happened once over 12 years in the business, so I'm not quite sure what to think of these results. My experience much more closely matches that reviewers reported. I feel like if Jamey is surprised about this, then Jamey needs to be a little bit more self-aware. Because getting a review copy from Jamey Stegmaier means you're getting a game that there is a huge, fervent fan base immediately pre-built in, not because of the designer or the mechanisms or the gameplay, but because it has Stonemaier games on the box. Right? So trying to compare his experiences, granted over 12 years, to other people's, I just, yeah, no. Because straight out the gate, you got to remember, your boy did a really bad preview video for Scythe, if I recall correctly. Like, yeah, Scythe. Like, I was covering viticulture back in the day, like, and even back then, like, Stonemaier Games was big. Like, you looked at that company, you're like, oh, wow, they got the cut of the jig is good. Charterstone, the Reload Pack, like, so many awesome ideas. Anyway, this is not the smooch on Jamey Stegmaier's awesome ideas thing. Overwhelming publishers leave it to reviewers to evaluate and disclose overt biases. Only 7% of publishers will not send products for review to those who have overt biases. And this is one thing that I have seen publishers ask quite frequently, especially when you sign up, like, whoa, what are some of your favorite games? What are some of your least favorite games? So this one makes sense to me, but I don't think most people do that, because that's, like I said, most publishers are small, and that's something that you have to do extra. Like, that's an extra step trying to vet reviewers and figure out what they like, as opposed to, hey, you want a copy of this? We really want some eyes on it before October 10th, ideally. Like, that's, so yeah. E.g., the reviewer's friends with publishers, designer of the reviewer receive money from the publisher in the past for other content, sponsorships. Overwhelmingly, publishers leave it to reviewers to evaluate and disclose. But yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine most people do that. It seems also against your best interest. It is fairly common for publishers to select reviewers for products they think the reviewer will enjoy. As a marketing expense for the publisher, I think this is a perfectly reasonable. Yeah, 100%. If they're not, then I think that's stupid. Over time, I think it's also worth offering reviewers a few different products to choose from rather than selecting reviewers for each individual product. Yeah. And that's always fun, too, because that's honestly, that's how you get more positive reviews. Like, if you're asking me, like, when I get an email, that's part of the reason why I love working Blue Orange Games. They're like, here's our list that's coming out this year. There's only like 6, 7, 8 games. Which ones interest you? And that makes it so I'm a lot less likely to say, oh, this abstract strategy game about turtles. No, I'm like, no, I want these 3 games that actually look cool and I'm going to play with my family. Not this one where I'm going to feel like, ugh, I'm just covering it to cover it, you know? Because, oh, it's got a great design or something like that. So, yeah, I would agree. I think that's a really solid idea. But, once again, I don't feel like that's an option for a lot of smaller publishers because Jamey Stegmaier has a large catalog of games compared to most publishers, right? But if you're larger, yeah, absolutely, I think that's the way to go. But then again, not all publishers are making more than one game at a time. So, it's once again kind of, I don't know. The vast majority of publishers consume reviews about their games, with only 4% avoiding such content completely, myself included. Yeah, because you got so many people doing it. That'd be hard. This is a conscious decision for me. One that I've shared openly with reviewers for a while, as I want them to feel completely free to say whatever they want about Stonemaier products without feeling like I'm talking over their shoulder. Also, it means I have no obligation to ever comment on one of your videos if you bring up anything to it about me in the future, because oh yeah, I don't check them out because I want you to have. It's a smart move. It is a very smart tactical decision, right? Because yes, you can say I do not want to be Big Brother, but it's also, yeah, I don't have to sift through 4 hours of gameplay, unboxing, and review you did for me. If it's a long game, 2 hours, 1 hour, whatever. Around half of reviewers say they're at least a little worried about saying negative things about games that will lead to fewer publishers sending them products. Yep, especially smaller ones. So I think the blind approach may help to I don't know. Jamey with his fancy words. Assuage means to lessen the intensity of something that pains or distresses. Lessen the intensity of something. Okay, I'm looking over their shoulder. Around half of reviewers say they're at least a little worried that saying negative things about games will lead to fewer publishers sending them products. So I think the blind approach may help to lessen the intensity of, yeah. So I think that, especially with around half publishers saying that's fairly common for them not to send future games reviewers and post a negative review. Yeah, like I said. Remember when I said 44% were concerned, and I said they should be? Publishers like, yeah, they should be. This is not surprising. Grandpa Force has been in the industry for a while. Publishers replied in a variety of ways to a question about sharing reviews of their games, though I think this speaks more to a different social media and aggregation practice than about the quality of the review itself. Publishers replied in a variety of ways to a question about sharing reviews of their games. That said, 30% of publishers said they typically share only positive reviews. Yeah. I mean, yeah. If someone says, hey, Bauer sucks, actually I would. I just love when people like put my name in your mouth. Helps me grow. The majority of publishers, 76%, try not to shape or avoid negative reviews. Yeah, I can't imagine they would have the time to even begin to do that. Reviewers indicated in these situations around 40% of them will contact the publisher before posting a negative review. 40% of them will contact, okay. I'm not in that 40%, but yeah, I can't say if it seems about right. That's just one of those conversations that happens behind closed doors. So I have no idea how other people handle that. So that's cool to know for me. I think the important thing here for reviewers to remember is that you are in the service to your audience and your passion for games, not to publishers. Bingo! The quicker you realize that as content creator, the quicker you can be free, right? It's like, oh my God. Oh, what? So this publisher doesn't send you any more games ever again. So what? Who cares? Chances are they're probably going to be out of business in 5 years anyway. And I hate to say that, but as someone who's been in the industry for 12 years, chances are that's just what's going to happen, right? So you just can't worry about it. You always have to be concerned about your audience. And if you're ever being disingenuous with your audience, it's not good. Because here's the thing. It can happen only a couple times, but like if they watch you routinely, they'll notice, right? They'll probably notice. If you willingly accept a copy of a game to review, the sole responsibility of acceptance is to play the game and share your thoughts with your reviewers, readers, and subscribers. You don't owe publishers a note, an explanation, an alternative, and or a positive review. Much of the conversation around this topic has been about the bias created by reviewers choosing and accepting free copies of games from publishers. I would contend that buying a game to review also includes bias. When you spend your money on a game, aren't you likely to choose a game you think you'll enjoy, and you might be more likely to convince yourself is worth the money? Ooh, that's a good point. Also, publishers often send games to reviewers before they're available for purchase, so customers have a chance to be properly informed, yeah? Stonemaier Games will continue to send hundreds of games, old and new, to reviewers who willingly accept them, as well as their publishers, but there's one other option to consider. If you're someone who is strongly disenfranchised by the current state of game reviewers, every now and then, offer to buy a game for your favorite reviewer. That removes both types of bias mentioned above. And it gives you the opportunity to support the reviewers you love and hear their opinions about the games that intrigue you. Some reviewers even make this easy by sharing their current wish lists with their followers. That's a great idea. And if you're going to follow through on that idea, I would suggest you go to the smallest content creator that you actively follow and do it to them. Because as someone who is a quote-unquote larger content creator, I know, it's crazy. You look at me compared to some people way more talented than me, and you're like, whoa, your numbers are too close to theirs. What the hell? It's interesting, but give it to them. Cause like I would honestly, if someone reached out to me and said that, unless it was like a grail game for me, I'd be like, you know what? I really appreciate that, man. That is super duper cool, but I'm already swimming, overflowing with games that I need to play and make content on. And I don't feel bad most of the time if I don't get to it. I don't feel bad about the publisher. Like they inherently just understand that's part of the risk of doing business, right? And I think that's one thing a lot of reviewers just don't wrap their head around because they're not in the industry long enough. But if someone actively, like a fan actively bought me a game, I would feel like that, even if they said no pressure at all. I just want you to enjoy this with your family. But still, that's super nice. It's a cool idea, and I love it, yeah. How many times do you offer to pay money to a content creator in exchange for a review of their product? Never, 57%. A few times, 28, many times. Almost always is, I don't even see that sliver. Yeah, how'd you afford that? How many times has a content creator asked you for money in exchange for the review of their product? A few times. Never. Interesting. What is your procedure for sending review copies to content creators who may have an overt bias for your company? I don't mention biases. Yeah, like, that's too much work. How often do you select games for reviewers based on what those reviewers are known to enjoy? Often, yeah. You should. Like, if you're not, that just feels like you being lazy at your job, right? Like, he's like, yeah, we sent Forrest this abstract. We sent him 2 abstract strategy games because he's got 29,000 subscribers. Did you see that he constantly bashes on them and he likes, like, 1 out of every 15? Oh, no. Well, there you go. If you send a reviewer a free product review, how often do you watch, read, listen to the review? Always. That's a high. Wow, I'm surprised about that one, honestly. Here's why. That's so much content. That is so much content. Like, especially if you're at a convention or something like that. Let's just say you hand out 5, 6, 7, 8 review copies. I think that's fair, right? You see Tom Vassell or somebody, obviously, you're going to practically throw it at the back of his head as he's walking by. You see, there's like some people where you are going to go out of your way to try and get into their hands no matter what, right? You see Shut Up or Sit Down, something like that. You're like, and they're probably like, there's a very good chance this will never get played, but if it does, you know, and you're going to be like, that's fine, here you go. But that's a lot of content to check out, especially like if you're factoring unboxing videos, gameplay videos, reviews, like all sorts of different stuff. So that's surprising to me, the always. That makes me feel, so then 32.9, cool. When a content creator shares a review link with your product, do you add that link to your website or share it on social media? I would imagine they don't. Yes, always. Sometimes, depending on the current bandwidth, not the content of the review. Only the review is informative, well presented, regards to the opinion. Only the review is positive. That one's all over the board. That one's fascinating to see. No, we leave it to the reviewers to share links to other reviews. Yeah, because it's like, that's essentially saying, yeah, we got time for that. If a content creator accepts that slice of the pie, I would love to know how that slice of the pie is doing in 5 years. Please, oh please, Jamey Stegmaier, just please, just find out this slice of the pie and say 5 years later, the slice of the pie that do not share reviewers' links at all. How are they now? Because I'm going to guess it's not good, bro. It's like when you're like, all those people who used to just shove crap in your backpack back in the day, how are you? And it's like, not good, man. Not good. That was me, by the way. So yeah, that slice is way too big. But once again, man, that's just mind-blowing to me. Because that's a slice. I'd love to know that slice. We can figure it out. 61.4, 71.4, 71.5, 78.5, 79.2, 84.2, 94.2. So that is 5.8%. Oh my gosh. Wow. If a content creator accepts a free copy from you and they inform you before that they don't like the product, what do? Ask them not to post the review. Offer them another product instead. Offer to forward the product to another reviewer instead. Yeah, thanks. That's my favorite. Cool, thank you. I love going to the post office. Do not provide any instructions or guidance as to how to proceed. Yeah, most of them are like, yeah, well, that's the nature of doing business. I'm an adult. You're an adult. This was a risk. Request that they proceed to create the review of the game they originally agreed to review. Interesting. If a content creator posts a negative review of your product, how often does what they say or how they say it impact whether you offer them free copies in the future? Never. Their opinion does not impact what I send them in the future at all. 17.4%. I'm going to make a bold proclamation that 17.4% are newer publishers for the most part. I'd say, and this is just me saying, at least 8.8% of those are, yeah, I think there's probably more there that are in that boat. Rarely, in extreme situations, I will remove the reviewer from our list. Extreme situations, okay? Sometimes we can send reviewer copies to all content creators anyway. We can't say, yeah, that's pretty much, these are pretty much, okay. Often, if they don't like our games, we'll take a chance on other reviewers. Okay. Everybody said those 44% should be scared. This is exactly why. It's like, yep. I believe that, and that right there, that is the problem. And that's why so many people think there's this huge smoking gun out there of like all this negative stuff. And it's really, no, it's just smaller content creators scared that they're going to get pipelines cut off because they're too early into their content creation to realize that there is an infinite number of pipelines. Because the only thing that matters about your pipeline of games is your subscriber count. That's it. At the end of the day, there will always be new companies who will look at nothing else except for that number. And if you can keep that number growing in any way, shape, or form, which you can, like all these people who get burnt out and they quit, it's hard for me to feel sympathy because at the end of the day, there's a really, really neat trick to continuing to grow. And it's very simple. Don't give up. That's what I tell my kids. You have two choices in life with everything you do. You can either do it or you can die without doing it. And unfortunately, dying without doing just about everything is way easier than doing anything. And it's just as simple. You just got to keep doing it. And that's why I always, if you're an aspiring content creator, take it easy with the amount of effort you are putting into the back end of your videos. Make it more about how fun it is to make the video. Because when you spend hours and hours and that thing gets 111 views and nobody gives a dang dickety dong dong doom and you get 4 thumbs up, it is a gut punch. Especially if you're not getting paid. I believe the data disagrees with the conclusion that it is also uncommon for a publisher to be asked for money by the reviewer, when in fact more than 80% of publishers report being asked for money by a reviewer, and more than 50% report that it happens many times or almost always. That's far from uncommon. In contrast, the last survey reports that over 93% of reviewers claim to have never asked for money. And this is where I think we're getting into some unclear terms here with the previews and the reviews and everything, and this is part of the problem. It's just so murky. And it's so murky everywhere. I do things differently than Man vs. Meeple, than the Dice Tower, than the guy with 206 subscribers from Sweden, than everyone else. Everyone does everything different, which just makes it more and more and more murky, because yes, if you go down into that murk, you will find those sea monsters who are doing all that nasty stuff, right? And it's like, it's just hard to see. I get it. And I get why people don't believe it. And more than 50% report that it happens many times or almost always. That's far from uncommon. In contrast, the last survey reports that over 93% of reviewers claim to have never asked for money. So clearly, there's at a minimum difference in perceptions as to practice. Also, and here's the other thing, you're comparing two very different lists. As much as Jamey tried to poo-poo the idea that the numbers weren't tainted by people having lower subscribe counts. I don't know if tainted's the right word. That's such an odd choice there. If they're not assuaged it, that's an incorrect usage of the word, but I don't care. But you get what I'm saying here. Because I imagine these publishers' responses were much more... The medium was much more similar than it was with the reviewers. I would be willing to speculate that all the live long day. And I think that, and hopefully I'm conveying my point here there. So it's like, I have a hard time comparing those numbers to the earlier numbers as much. I would take that with a big grain of salt. But you do you. If you want there to be a smoking gun, keep going. Because honestly, if everybody just has this incredibly jaded view about all reviewers, then my style of reviewing is only going to get more popular. So go, Brad Clemens. Go spread some more, and I'm not saying misinformation because it's not. Just spread your opinion more. It's good for me. In contrast, the last survey reports, so clearly there's a difference in perception as to the practice if we're giving the benefit of the doubt. If not, an unwillingness or inability for one or both sides to be honest and object about it in a survey. Or possibly those handful of reviewers who routinely ask for money have colored the perception of the publishers toward content creators as a whole, that murky underbottom. It's there. It's there. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that. Brad, publishers have hundreds, if not thousands, of interactions and requests by reviewers. If only a few of those requests involve a request for payment, that is indeed uncommon. Fair. Yeah, and that's the thing that you don't realize. And I did a video about this a couple years back. I don't even think I ever posted it. It's just sitting there. I have so many videos that are sitting there. They're going to get pooped out on a random Tuesday at 3 a.m. But I called it like a walk through the graveyard, where it was like I checked out the most popular game from 5 years ago, and all the content creators that made content on that game to see if they were still actively involved in the content making hobby. And it was so eye-opening. I think I did Terraforming Mars. I don't remember. I want to go back to that video and see the percentage of content creators that are just no longer making it, right? And that's every year. So I think whatever your thoughts are on content creators, you always need to realize just how many of them there are. It is hundreds, thousands, realistically thousands, worldwide, I would say. And the best way to prove that, you just go over here, the Board Game Reviewers group. There's a Board Game Reviewers group. Board Game Reviewers and Media. And it's like 8,000 members. Yeah, it's huge. There's a lot of discussion around the issues of disclosures, paid reviews, comp copies for reviews, etc. at the last Gamma Expo, with a particular emphasis on the fact that the FTC is starting to pay. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like, oh, everybody's gonna be in trouble. I remember that. It's like, oh, that's so cute. That's cute. Because and the reason why I'm saying that is because it feels like this happens every couple of years. We're like, oh, they're really starting to crack down. You better make sure you click those buttons on the thing. And I try to do it. Like, I try to do it myself. I always try to, disclose that. But there's some people that just feel like it's the boogeyman. It's like, oh, they're coming for my channel. I have 1,200 subscribers. They're coming for me. It's like, and they warn other people. It's like, I get it. You're new here, but just chill. You are not the people that they're worried about, right? Like, it's much larger channels than the overwhelming majority of the people that worry about it, right? In my personal opinion. And I was at Gamma. Let's put the preface there. I was at Gamma. I was working with Hero Time Manufacturing. I was at Gamma, so I heard a lot of this as well. The scuttlebutt, and I talked to a lot of other people about the scuttlebutt as well, and there are a lot of other people who've been in the industry for quite a while. They're like, yeah. It seems really as though there could be a market for a sort of middleman, potentially supported by fans community that selects and sends games for review, as well as agitating statistics for reviewers for the community to see. Now this is it. And I've talked to Scott from Board Game Geek about this before, and this is going to be someone's... Right now, Board Game Geek is the alpha and the omega of our hobby, right? It dominates. What's the... Aside from selling things, obviously selling things, you got Amazon, you got that, but... just learning information about board games, talking about board games, aside from, like Tabletopia, Tabletop Simulator, which are stealing chunks away, but it's mostly Board Game Geek, right? And I think there is a huge market if someone just did like a Rotten Tomatoes, essentially, and was like, but then that opens up so many cans of worms about who gets in, and then there's also like this, yeah. Because here's the thing, how do you decide who's the reviewer that's like, oh, they're trusted. They're on the Rotten Tomato meter, so to speak. But it's going to happen. It eventually is going to happen as board games continue to grow. And I welcome it. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I think it's going to usher in an era of people being able to be seen easier without having to conform to the way that it is right now, If you want to grow in the hobby, there's a few ways to do it, and most of them involve being like everybody else until you have a large enough fan base to be able to have a couple more cards in your hand. I'm trying to say this in a diplomatic way, but I think you're reading between the lines here pretty much. It's as a newer content creator, you don't hold any cards, like, because you and that's the way it should be, right? Like, you should just walk in and be like, yeah, I'm Bauer's Game Corner. I got 176 subscribers. What's up? And I've seen people who do that, man. You're like, really? You're coming in here, Big D swinging with 1,200 subscribers, talking like that to a publisher? I've seen it so many times. I've been cut in line so many times when I'm about to do a free interview to someone and someone comes up with their fancy business card. They'll have a stack full of review copies. And they'll be like, hey, my name's Cecil. We're new to this. We do some really high quality. Blah, 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 blah. The art guy comes back to my mind. There's a guy who did this amazing chalk art stuff, but the time it took to do that was so fantastic. And I probably, you know what? We're just going to strike that one from the record. I'm going to stop talking. As a small publisher, I see the appeal of paying for review. Most critics get a lot of things to review, and if offering some money to ensure the review actually happens, this is what I was talking about earlier, especially by time frame, this makes sense for a business perspective, especially for small games that don't get the AAA spotlight. The big thing that holds me back from paying for reviews is the stigma associated with it. Exactly. That is it. It's like AI art. It's just, there's just this stigma right now, but eventually, slowly, it's going to go away. In my opinion, it's not only unethical to pay for review, but depending on the situation, it could also be illegal. I run Meeple Mountain, a board game media outlet. We provide clear indication at the top of each review when we're reviewing published provided games. Since we started in 2015, we've reviewed over 2,100 games, and in that time, we've only done 2 or 3 previews where we were paid. I'd rather our readers trust our opinions than earn a few $100s and risk people not believing our final conclusion believes because of perceived biases. Well, as someone who has done over 100 previews, I would counter that by saying, then put your opinions into the preview. And I didn't used to do that. Now I do it. But yeah, it's like, and you'll have people pounding their chests and stuff. Like, I get it. Now let's see. I'm curious. Meeple Mountain, because yeah, I see him post all the time and like a lot of stuff. So let's check it out. Meeple Mountain. Boom. Okay. And they've done a lot of videos too. 544 videos. And this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I said 2 minutes ago. Like, this is the right way. Like, this is the right way to do it. In theory, right? I guess. I don't know. It's weird. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of board game reviews and previews. After watching a few videos from the same channel or a few videos from different channels about the same game, it is usually easy to tell who's being honest and who is avoiding negative feedback for some ulterior motive. That's the funnest. Oh my gosh, that's like one of my favorite things to do when I like see an absolutely god-awful, terrible game. Like, it was like, mechanically, this is such a bad game. Or rule booklet-wise, they completely, like, they screwed this huge thing up. And then you see the reviews, and you're like, ooh, you're on my list of people I don't believe anymore. That's fun. That's so fun. I've unsubscribed from those creators, and there's probably more people like me. Marco! Me too. Marco Simpatico. We have limited money, so we use reviews to inform our purchases. If we suspect the reviewer is holding back, and that has made us buy bad games, we will stop trusting them and won't waste time with their content. Because firstly, if a reviewer is honest and able to call out lesser games, even when they have been provided for free, then our trust in that creator will grow. So in a sense, I think that over time, everything tends to sort out fine. Yeah. It goes back to what I said. Just keep going. Is it an ulterior motive if you're just a gamer like any of us who wants to like the games we invest our time and energy in? I really don't understand why some people feel like negativity is an indicator of honesty and integrity. After all, this is the internet we're talking about. Negative clickbait thumbnails, image... Okay. There's a difference between going negative and saying, oh, this is garbage, it sucks, and methodically and meticulously picking something apart because of why it sucks. That, I believe, is what people like. I don't go to a Kickstarter page. There's a reason Kickstarter critiques are 40 minutes and not 20. I could gloss over something and say, oh, God, this is terrible, this sucks, and I could keep going. But I don't. I meticulously analyze it, break it down, talk about what other people did that was better. Like, there's a way to do it. So this notion that Jamey's saying, like, I really don't understand why... Yes, I have a hard time believing... that. I just do. Because if you see a negative review where someone bit by bit breaks down exactly, and shut up and sit down for my money, when they really tear into a game, they do it some of the best. And so it's just surprising to me. And I get it. Like, here's the thing. Part of the reason why Jamey Stegmaier has been in this hobby for so long and he's done well for so long is because he realizes that if you stay directly, like, in whatever is the right middle, then you're good, right? And that's smart. It's smart. It's what I should do. Never will. But that's why I'll never be as big as Jamey. Unless my plumbing videos keep going, damn it. After all, this is the internet. We're talking about negative clickbait. Now, clickbait's, yeah, if you put clickbait stuff, like, oh my God. Like, who's that one guy? What is it? Oh, I don't remember. You probably know I'm talking about. I hate this thumbnail stuff. Oh, it's that one guy. I think he's, You know what I'm talking about. Somebody post in the comments and I'll pin it. After all, this is the internet. We're talking about negative clickbait thumbnail images attract large crowds, so why not highlight negativity as as an ulterior motive instead? And a negative review is no more honest than a positive review. I feel like we're really, really painting with some broad paintbrush strokes here, Jamey. I wish Jamey had likes on this. I don't think this one would have a high number of likes. The point of review is to serve the reviewers and audience with their true opinion, whether it's good, bad, or mixed, ideally expressed in a way that, as you can say, can help us figure out the game if it's the right fit. If a reviewer isn't doing that for someone, that doesn't make them a dishonored reviewer. It just means they aren't a good fit for that person. You are correct. In many occasions, tastes are simply different, but sometimes it seems like they're holding back, probably for fear that the publisher will not send them games in the future, which they should fear. In any case, whether there are reasons for not calling out bad gamers or bad parts of good games, bingo, it is their loss, since viewers will eventually lose trust in them, and this will hurt them probably more than not receiving games from a publisher. Bingo! Marco has realized what I have realized over the last 8 years. And yes, I've been doing this for 12 years, so figure out the math there. In my case, after then, so about 4 years, you start to see things a little bit differently, I would guess. Especially if you go to a lot of conventions and talk to a lot of publishers and talk to a lot of content creators. In my case, after then years watching game-related content, the list of reviewers I trust has been reduced to 1. Not because their tastes are the same, because the videos always help me know whether a game will be a good fit for my family. Wow, I think Marco's the extreme end here, but I don't disagree with the basic notion. I, of course, cannot talk on behalf of all reviewers, but I can say that my reason for holding back is the possibility that I do not know everything. Saying that I feel a mechanic is not well developed or the game is not well balanced, I could rant about how bad this thing, or I could admit that I have the whole picture. I trust that the publishers love their job as much as reviewers do, so it's very likely they have played the games more times than I have, more impatiently. More importantly, there are tons of trade-offs that I'm not that I am not aware. In the mechanics case, maybe the publishers had a solution, but their solution required more components, making the game too expensive. There's a reason why they did not pick it. And in the balance, okay, this feels like a really solid answer here. It does. It just feels like a great answer. That one, I think, would have a lot of thumbs. I don't like the low number of negative reviews. I don't think the low number of negative reviews is due to ulterior motives. For me as a reviewer, this will most likely be affected by selection bias and the overall quality of the games. Yeah, and there's the other thing, too. That's the other thing you really need to remember. There's not a lot of bad games that come out anymore. Like, there's a lot of games that are fine, and I play it. I was like, I don't see myself playing this 3 times ever after this. But it was a fine experience. And I feel like that's the baseline for 80% of the games that come out now. I feel like 80% of the games fall into that or better. Actually, it's even higher than that. Which is also why there's so few negative reviews in my personal opinion. But it's also why those positive reviews for those style games, not including the negatives, is so much extra damning. Like, if I as a reviewer feel that I legitimately have no interest in ever playing this more than 2 or 3 times ever again, because I feel like I've seen every single trick this game has had. I've seen the cards. There's nothing like that's one thing I do as a reviewer nowadays. I always, after I get out of the game, I say, all right, what was the most possible fun version of that game that we possibly could ever have? Like, I've seen, and sometimes you don't know, and that's when a game's really exciting. Most of the time you get an idea. Like, all right, did we get the best case? Oh, my green screen, you're seeing the internet. But that's how I think about stuff, and it's just, I don't know. I love this blog post, by the way. I mentioned this in another comment, but organizations like the Society of Professional Journalists have a code of ethic for media. Board game content creators might want to review it and adapt it for their own use. There are some guidelines. Do we really? Like, who's worried? The smaller ones. Okay, I get it. Are some guidelines that don't really apply, and they should be. I'm not trying to poo-poo their concerns. I used to have those very concerns. It's just the longer you're in the hobby, the more you realize the only thing that's going to stop you is you. Or copyright strikes. But if you're getting copyright strikes, well, then figure out how not to do that. Avoid conflicts of interest, real or perceived. Avoid, disclose, and distinguish news from advertising and shun hybrids that blur the line between the two. Prominently label sponsored content. Yeah, this is all good stuff. I think creating a code of ethics for yourself as content. Yeah, this is all good stuff. But actually, like, putting it into this, it's like, it's so pointless. Like, it's just a big waste of time because it's, who's looking at that and saying, oh, look, this person's on this. It's just, I love the idea, but at the end, there's not enough money in the hobby. And that's really what all this boils down to. And that's the biggest thing everyone needs to realize is that most of the people in this hobby, from the top to the bottom, aren't making a lot of money. And so when there's all these extra steps that we want to put into place in the system to ensure that the system is better, there's a lot of time, effort, and money that needs to be put into that. And there's already not a lot of money for the time and effort that people have, right? And it's just logistically, what are you going to do? I don't know. Note about contract the publisher before posting their review. When we do this at Gaming Trend, I like the fact they actually mentioned who they were. Big ups for Mike Dunn. It's usually to ensure we haven't made a mistake or something was missing or an error. We're not afraid to post bad reviews. We just want to make sure we are working with good. Yeah, that's really important too. Because that's the worst, and that's honestly why I should do that with negative reviews. Because then they can be like, oh, yeah, so you played it wrong, idiot. And be like, oh, cool. Well, maybe you should make your rule book look better, idiot. Maybe I won't say that, but I'll think it. Great data. Or I will and be like, well, here's the thing. Maybe you should consider in the second edition moving this rule here. I'm going to make an update to my video and say that I misplayed it, but I also will mention the rule booklet. Potentially. Great data. Thanks for sharing. I think it's interesting the difference between reviewers and publishers' opinion. My guess for the reason of the difference is one of two things. The definition of review versus preview. Yeah, this is like the biggest thing here. It murkies the water. Despite the absence of negatives and previews, there's usually a range in the strength of positive mentions with a reviewer's previews. Bingo. Many will slip and confess when a game is one of their favorites despite it not being a review. Yes. Because we don't mind saying that. Like, we want to share how much we love those games. Most reviewers can't review all games. It's not reasonable to expect them to do so. That saying, they should always review all games they've been paid to do other services for. Yeah, if you get paid, that's another ball game. For example, you may pay a reviewer to do a playthrough for your game. It only makes sense that they also review the game. It saves them time, as you already spent the time to learn and play it. That's actually a really good point. And their audience likely already wants to see a review for a game that they just saw a preview for. So while technically you were paying for a playthrough, in reality, you were also guaranteeing your game will be reviewed in a timely fashion. That's a pretty big stretch there, my friend. But yeah, I get your line of thinking. I don't believe almost all reviewers acting purposely immoral at all, but I do believe they are likely more affected by publisher money than they think they are. Most of the time, for very practical, good business practice reasons. Very well put, Seth. Thank you for doing both these surveys. Jamey, I participated in the reviewer one. I typed a long reply to that blog post, but ended up deleting it. I'm continually disappointed in the whole paid review preview behavior in this industry, and I've resigned myself to spend less time worrying about others or trying to fight the prevailing winds. Spend too much time thinking about it is simply depressing. But I'm writing a comment here because this sort of surprised me. With around half of publishers saying that it's fairly common for them to not to send future games to reviewers who post a negative review of their previous game, that's disappointing. I've of course explained this myself, but I don't expect those numbers in the poll. Really? I don't think you've been reviewing for long enough then, Charlie, because the more you're in the hobby, the more this once again goes back to the fact they don't make much money. They're not making a lot of money, and they are giving you money. This review copy cost us $8.26. I know it says $40 on there. It cost us $8.26, and we're giving away 10 of them, so we just spent $80. And my daughter is here, and she pooped on the potty today, so I think that is my thoughts on that. That was a really great read, and this is why I highly recommend Stonemaier Games blog. I'll post a link down to it below. It's fantastic, and if you're launching a Kickstarter, in addition, of course, to checking out the Kickstarter retreat weekly at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you should be reading this blog, and I cannot say that enough, especially his Kickstarter crowdfunding content. And you're saying, well, but he doesn't even do crowdfunding stuff anymore. Well, that's because he got out at the right time, because there was... Yeah, I think that I'm curious as why they don't get back. My daughter's here. I could talk about Stonemaier Games. They're such a fascinating company for a long time who do a lot of spectacular games. But if you're enjoying the content, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below as we're trying to reach 30,000 subscribers. That'd be 30,000 subscribers in 2024. Jesus, I'm so old. I don't know the year anymore. Oh, God. It's terrible. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube. Bye-bye.